Welcome to part 3 of the Summer Food Service Program application packet. In this one, we're going to be going over site information sheets. So I'm going to go ahead and log in and get to that summary page. Click SFSP, the SFSP in the upper corner, program year 2022, and then I'm back at my sponsor summary page. And where you can see here that I've got one of two site information sheets, one being completed and the other one not. So if I go to applications, I'm going to see my site information sheets listed down below. For those experienced sponsors out there, we brought over your 2019 sites to populate this. We understand that it might not be true and accurate to what you plan on operating this year, but it was the path of least resistance because quite a few schools out there in 2020 and 2021 were operating in sites that wouldn't traditionally operate it in. So we brought over your 2019 sites. If there are sites listed that you do not wish to operate out of, we have a Microsoft form where you're just going to tell us your sponsor name and which sites you would like us to deactivate. That doesn't mean they go away forever. It just means that they won't be operating this year in the summer program. We can always add them back, so it's not a big deal if we deactivate and we have to reactivate a site. And if there are sites listed that you wish, if you are missing sites or if you would like to add sites to the list that you see, again, in that same Microsoft form format, you're just going to tell us the name of your site and a couple other questions, and then we'll populate it into CMP Web, so it will be listed below your sponsor summary. The catch is with these sponsor application packets is that in order to submit your SFSP application, all of the sites that are listed need to have a completed site info sheet. So if you are not planning on to operate some of those sites, we do have to deactivate them. But keep in mind, any new sites that you wish to add, we can add at any time. We can add them after you've submitted your application packet to us. But the ones that you do see listed will either have to be deactivated or completed. So that being said, I'm going to go down to my site info sheet, and I have one for Perry Park that I'm going to enter now. So I can do that by hitting the plus sign. And that brings us to Perry Park site information sheet. So remember, site information sheets are telling us about the location you're serving your meals. So to start off, the site address, make sure the address is not changing year to year, especially if this is a site that you've brought over from a previous year. If the address has changed, that's considered a new type of site, a new site altogether. So that will have to be added into CMP Web through us. So go ahead and enter your address. Again, I'm just going to autofill whatever is in my browser at the moment. So this isn't a real site. Your site supervisor, this is the person that is going to be overseeing the meals at this particular site, or the site, or your staff person that will spend most of its time at this particular site. So go ahead and enter your site supervisor. Typically, we won't contact this person. This is just for documentation about your site. We'll contact you before we contact the site supervisors. The next piece, number 9, for general information about your site, it's asking if it is a rural site or an urban site. And on the instructions that were provided to you about filling out this packet, it does define what is considered a urban site in Maine. It does go by county. So off the top of my head, Cumberland, York, Penobscot, Androscoggin, Sagadahoc are some of the urban counties for Maine. So if your site is located in one of those counties, you're just going to say you're urban. For all the other counties, you're going to say you're rural. Penobscot is a tricky one because we all think of it as northern Penobscot being rural, but they're really considered urban just because Bangor kind of brings you up in the population scale for that county. So Believe it or not, Penobscot County is urban. Okay, so I'm going to say I'm rural. And then number 10, the site location type. So you're going to click anything that applies to your site, and this is just telling us about where your site is located. So is it located at a school or a park? Is it a mobile site? Is it a tribal site, an upward bound, a housing authority? Is it a camp or a community center, or is it anything else? You're just going to tell us about your site. So this one is a park, so I'm just going to click that. Number 11 is your site classification type. So this is basically telling us how you plan on serving. So if you're an open site, that means anybody is welcome to come to your site. If you're a restricted open site, anybody is welcome to come to your site, but you've got capacity restrictions. So there's something holding you back from, you know, maybe it's a fire code, maybe you only have the capacity to serve just 15 kids. There's something restricting you from being just a generic open site. So you would say you're a restricted open site. For closed enrolled sites, typically these are some kind of a program running for kids where you're only feeding the same kids day in and day out. And to qualify those sites, it's a little bit different, and we're going to talk about that in part 12. For residential camps, those are overnight camps. They can do 3 meals. For migrant sites, we only have one migrant organization in Maine that does the summer program, to my knowledge, and they have the migrant status of their kids, and that's how we qualify. For non-residential or day camps, these are camps where there's scheduled activities between meals. They can also do up to 3 meals a day, just like residential camps. Your homeless and your HUD sites, or your urban housing development sites. So I'm going to select what kind of site type I am, which I'm a park and I'm an open site. For the site eligibility, this is how we qualify you for the summer program. So there's multiple ways to do it, and not every one is the perfect fit for the other, so it's a little bit complicated. And if you're not familiar with how to qualify your site, you're just going to contact someone in our office and we're going to help you through it. But this is a park site, it's an open site, so I can use area eligibility to qualify my park site. So that means I can use the local school data. If the school in that area is over 50% free reduced eligibility, using the October survey, formerly known as the ED 534 report. This is where schools report to the state how many kids in their school receive free reduced meals or qualify for free reduced meals. So I can use school data from the local school. I can also use census data. So I would type in the address to my site into our census mapper, and it will let us know what the percentage of kids eligible in that census block or group are. So that is also provided to you in your instructions for your site info sheet if you wish to do that on your own. We also can do a census averaging. This we ask for you to come to someone that works in our office to help you with. But with census averaging, first and foremost, if you type your address into the census mapper, it has to be at least 40% before you can average. So you would need to average if you weren't quite 50%, and you can't use just one census block. You can average up to 3 blocks together. They have to be neighboring to your address's census block, and the block your address is in has to at least start at 40%. So it's a little complicated, but we can help you through this if this is kind of the last worst case scenario as we do census averaging to qualify. The next one is special eligibility certification. So with this box, what you could put here is, we can't qualify you using census or school data this year, but this is a pre-existing site that has operated in the last 5 years. We can go back in time and use the same qualifier. We just have to be really specific about it. So here you would say operated in SY pick a year, 19, SY19, using Perry School as the eligibility, and then the percentage, so 60%. So we would use historical data here in the special eligibility certification. You'd have to name the year that it last qualified and how we qualified it, whether we used census or we used a school. You'd have to specify. For closed enrolled, these again are, you're feeding the same kids every day. You're not going to be open. You're just feeding the same kids. There's two ways to use closed enrolled eligibility. You are either feeding kids that live in the area and the area qualifies. So you can actually use, again, this is if you clicked closed enrolled up here. If you clicked closed enrolled up here, you could use school data if the school in that area qualified, or census. That's only if you're feeding kids that live in that area and would attend that school. And this is special. This is a special waiver that USDA has let us use for the last 4 years, so we're still using it, and that's why it's a little wonky. It's a little confusing, and it's not straightforward, but typically, if you had a closed enrolled site, you'd have the applications on hand for those kids, and you will determine that out of that enrolled program, 50% of your kids qualify. So if you were doing a closed enrolled site and you were operating in an area that the school didn't qualify and census didn't qualify, we could take that group of kids, and then we could collect their free reduced meal applications, and you could let us know how many total were enrolled in the program and the number of free reduced kids enrolled in the program. And as long as it's over 50%, you can feed everybody in that program for free. So closed enrolled programs, if census doesn't work out and if the school data doesn't work out for those kids in that area, then we know the individual eligibility of each child, and over 50% total, as a total group, you would qualify. For migrant kids, again, migrant organizations know the migrant status of their children, so they would tell us how many total children they're serving and the number of migrant children are serving. So I'm going to give you an example of using school data, and I know this isn't going to work out to qualify this site, but this is just to give you an example. So if I said first of all, let me go back to open park site. I'm going to use school data to qualify. I'm going to use the October survey to qualify. Right here, I'm going to enter the school ID number. So let's see if I can remember. I think Perry Elementary School, I think the number for the site is 354, if I remember right. It's different than the sponsor number. So let's try that. If I go to hit save, and I'm gonna have errors, I know that. Using Perry School's ID, it showed me that this year's October survey, they were only 30% or 37% eligible. So they're not eligible to run a program at this site using school data. But say if I know, I'm going to delete this out, clear it out, because we're not going to use it. Instead, I'm going to use census. So if I use census, I would go look up the site address. I would take the block number. So the block numbers are a great big long number. You're going to enter it there, and then you're going to tell me the percentage eligible for that census tract or block group. One thing I didn't cover yet was the camps. This is up here. So this section is going to be used for both day camp and residential. You're going to tell us how many kids that are enrolled total to your camp, and what is the projected number of eligible free reduced kids. So if you're a camp that does multiple sessions of, say, 100 kids one week and 120 kids the next week, you would tell us the total kids that you would project, so 220, and then the total number of kids that you perceive would get free reduced meals. Remember, with camps, you can only claim for reimbursement the meals for the kids that you have applications for and they qualify for free reduced meals. So that is the difference with camps. You can only claim for those children that are eligible to receive the meal. There's no 50% rule with camps. Okay, so I am going to scroll down to number 13. Number 13 is asking us, what's the area served? So you're kind of just describing what the site is like. So I'm just going to say park here. Please be more specific than I am being, but if, like, what's your general demographic? What are you looking for age groups? Just give us an example of what's going on with the site. Okay, the next, these are all red because I hit save, by the way, and that gave me my errors. So the next piece, number 14, does the system used to serve meals at the site ensure that each child receives a complete meal and that meals are counted at the point of service? So we often see tick sheets at summer sites. That's just where you mark off a meal as a child takes it, and that's important with the summer food service program, is that you should only be counting meals as the child receives the meal, not beforehand. You can't just send someone off with 20 meals and they come back with 5 and you claim 15. We need to see documentation of children receiving each individual meal. So I would say yes to that, making sure that there is a system in place. Number 15, does the site have the necessary staff and facilities so that the meal service is organized and properly supervised? So noting that you at least have one staff member at the site to oversee the program. Are procedures in place to adjust meal orders to reflect the number of children participating? So what this is saying is, if you're an open site and you've got the capacity to make many meals, and this site is, you're distributing 20 meals at the site every day, and all 20 meals are always getting taken, is that telling me that there are other children in that site that aren't getting a meal because you're only providing 20? So this is just kind of saying, like, you've got the procedure in place to know when you need to either cut back on meals or give out more because there's a demand. So making sure you're kind of looking back at your participation at the site and adjusting your meals as necessary. That was a very long-winded explanation for that. Number 17, does the site have adequate facilities for holding meals at proper temperatures or served within 1 hour of delivery? So making sure you've got the proper storage for your food, prepared food. Number 18, does the site handle unserved meals by discarding or storing or returning them to the central kitchen? So remember, if you don't serve a meal, as long as it wasn't left out in the danger zone, that danger temperature zone, for more than 4 hours, it can be reserved as long as it goes back and is refrigerated. Number 19, it's asking for your beginning date and end date. So what's your first date of meal service? And this, I'm just going to say July 1st, and your end date or your last day of meal service. I'm going to say July 30th. Next, it's asking you what are the number of operating days in each month. So these are the number of days each month that you are physically serving meals and children are physically receiving them. So that being said, I'm in July, and you're not going to put all, if you're only doing 5 days a week, you're only going to put 20 days for for July. So remember, don't put every single day of the month if you're just serving 5 days a week. The next section is asking about your the types of meals you're serving, the begin time and end time of that meal service, the days of the week that meal is getting provided, your estimated number of kids that will come to your site, and what's the maximum number of kids you can serve. So for instance, if I was doing breakfast, this first drop down, the S or the V, is asking me if this is a self-prep, which means I make the meals as the sponsor, or a vended site, which means I am purchasing the meals from a third party. So if I'm self-prep, I'm making the meals, I would select an S for that meal. Offer versus serve. So if you know about offer versus serve, it allows children to take 3 of the 5 required components. So offer versus serve, do you allow it at this site? Click yes if you do, leave it blank if you don't. They're going to get complete meals at this site, so I'm leaving it unchecked. The beginning time, which is this very start of that meal that I'm going to begin service, and then the end time, I'm also going to enter. Days meals served. So the first check box you'll see, if I click this, it's going to autofill Monday through Friday. If I don't wish for that, unclick that and just put, say if I wanted to do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you're just going to click the days of the week that you're going to serve the meal. Your estimate attendance, so how many kids do you think you'll get daily? I'm going to say 25. And your cap, so I tell people put the maximum number of meals you could ever put out of your kitchen into this box. So the catches with the cap is that in your claim, if your average daily participation goes over your cap, it won't let you claim those meals. So you just want to make sure that it's still feasibly possible to make that number of meals, but it's probably unlikely that you'll ever hit that number. So for this site, for instance, I'm going to say 200 meals is my cap. That's the most I could ever see physically possible putting out at that site. All right. If I was a camp, you're going to put the estimated number of eligible campers on this day. So that's the number of campers that would eat this day, that are qualifying for free reduced meals. So if you have a camp and you have 100 kids total, but 50 of them qualify, receive free reduced meals, the estimated number of campers that would qualify or that you would be claiming would be 50. Put 51 just in case, but that's the number that you would put there. If you have any comments about meal service or operating dates, go ahead and put it number 27. Number 28, does meal preparation facility for the site receive a health inspection at least once a year? Yes or no? Not all summer sites have to do a health inspection. If you're a school and you're making where your meals are being prepared and made, that will have to receive a health inspection. But if you're just serving at a park, that obviously doesn't have to have a health inspection. And number 29 is, will the site host any activities for participants? Yes or no? And then if yes, just say what. How many staff members supervise meal service? So how many of your staff oversee meal service? I'm going to say 1. If number 31, if the site is a camp, describe the schedule below. So this question is asking 2 different things. One, if you're a camp and you've got different sessions of kids coming in, different groups of kids throughout the summer, list how many sessions you have. And then the second part is, especially if you're a day camp, we need to have evidence that you have a planned activity schedule for kids for that day. So let us know the day your camp starts, when your meal service times are, and what's going on in between meal service and after. Number 32, if this is an outdoor site, where will meals be served in inclement weather? So just let us know your plan. It may be the case that if it's severe weather, you have to not operate out of the site. That's okay. Just put what happens, how are people notified if you don't operate. And then number 33, again, you're certifying that everything entered above is correct. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save and see if I get any errors. I didn't get any errors, so that's good. So now I can exit my SID info sheet. So now all of these documents are in pending submission. Again, if you need to add sites, you have to do that through our office by filling out a Microsoft form, and they're very easy to do. You're just going to tell us the name of your site, how it operates, and then hit submit. Don't forget your sponsor name, because we can't identify in a Microsoft form who's sending what to us without some kind of identifier, whether it's the sponsor name or whatnot. So this is completing the site info sheet. The next step of our webinar series will be uploading and approving the application packet for DOE to say, hey, you're good to go, ready to operate this summer.